Thursday, May 26, 2026. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful. Let's start with the latest on a previously unknown group that has claimed responsibility for a wave of anti-Semitic attacks across Europe this month. The group calls itself, bear with me, I've been trying to pronounce this all day, Harakat Ashab al-Yamim al-Islamiyah, or Hayi, Hayi, for short. I don't know how to pronounce the Hayi. Is it Hayi or Hayi? But it's Hayi for short. That roughly translates to the Islamic movement of the people of the right hand. That should get some attention. We'll talk about that later. In March 2026, they claimed the following attacks, none of which caused any injuries. March 9th, a firebombing of a synagogue in Liège, Belgium. March 13th, firebombing of a synagogue in Rotterdam, Netherlands. Again on March 13th, attack on a Jewish school in Amsterdam. March 22nd, fire set at a Jewish ambulance service in London. And a thwarted attack on a Chabad Hebrew school in Heemstede, Netherlands. Car burning in the Jewish quarter of Antwerp, Belgium. So far, the people arrested in connection with these incidents have mostly been young adults and teenagers, some still minors, especially in the Antwerp case. Here's what we know about Hayi itself. The group only emerged in the past few weeks. Security analysts still know very little about it and cannot even confirm if it's real. Cohesive organization or just a name being used as cover. In their statements, Hayi says they are targeting U.S. and Israeli interests and have warned Europeans to distance themselves from anything American or Zionist. They claim they will keep attacking until we've avenged every child in Gaza, Iran, Lebanon, and the resistance nations. Many analysts suspect Hayi is not a brand new independent terror group. It may be a front or cover name linked to pro-Iranian militias or the IRGC. They could be recruiting local youth. Obviously, if you're a youth, you're young. Sometimes even paying them rather than running a sophisticated operation themselves. There are also inconsistencies in their messaging and imagery that make some experts doubt it's a fully coordinated Iranian-backed effort. It might instead be tied to local criminal networks working with terror groups. Belgium has increased security at Jewish sites after these attacks. Dutch officials are also investigating possible Hayi involvement in other incidents, including an explosion at a U.S. bank branch in Amsterdam. In short, while Hayi is claiming a coordinated campaign of low-level attacks on Jewish targets in multiple European countries, experts remain skeptical about its true nature and scale. Many see it as an attempt to create fear and the appearance of widespread terror in Europe. Important update for our American viewers. As of today, March 26, Hayi has not spread to the United States. There are no claimed or reported attacks by this group on U.S. soil. All verified incidents remain confined to Europe, specifically Belgium, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. The group has issued broad threats against U.S. and Israeli interests worldwide, but so far their actions and claims have stayed in Europe. U.S. authorities have issued general heightened alerts for Jewish and Israeli sites abroad because of the broader risks of Iranian retaliation, but nothing to Hayi operations inside America. Jewish communities in the U.S. and Canada have seen other anti-Semitic incidents since the Iran conflict escalated, but none have been linked to Hayi. Security services on both sides of the Atlantic are monitoring the situation closely. Now, shifting to the dominant global story, the Iran-Israel U.S. conflict. Today, March 26, President Trump held a cabinet meeting where the main topics were the war with Iran and the ongoing partial DHS shutdown. If you didn't get an opportunity to watch it, it was particularly entertaining. On Iran, Trump said the country has been decisively defeated, that Iran is now begging for a deal, not the other way around, and that America has won and is ahead of schedule. He warned Iran to get serious soon or face even harsher consequences, saying once that happens, there is no turning back. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff confirmed the U.S. has delivered a 15-point action plan for peace to Iran through Pakistan. Witkoff said Iran is looking for an off-ramp and there's a strong possibility of a deal. But Trump added that he doesn't know yet if the U.S. is willing to make one right now. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the Pentagon will keep negotiating with bombs while still welcoming the possibility of a deal. Trump also pointed to small signs of de-escalation, such as Iran allowing some oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. On the domestic side, Trump blamed Democrats for the airport chaos and TSA staffing problems caused by the partial DHS shutdown, but no new resolution or breakthrough was announced. Overall, the meeting projected U.S. strength and optimism on the Iran situation while keeping military pressure high. There was no actual ceasefire or major policy shift. Talks remained stalled, with mixed signals coming from both sides. And that's what we got now. Let's get into the daily Torment report, and I've got a couple of scenes from this from the cabinet meeting this morning that I'd like to show you. But let's get started with this.
Through shadows deep, through bitter years, I see your strength, I see your tears, the weight of loss, the trials fire, still you rise, reaching higher. They pressed you down, they closed you in, but you endured, you would not bend. Through fleeting wealth and fleeting pain, you held your ground, you bore the strain. Hold on, the dawn will break. Through every storm, through every ache, though the world may take its toll, they can't touch your unbroken soul.
All right, kicking off with Donald Trump's timeline. See if he's posted anything worth reading today. Starting off about an hour ago, the radical left Democrats and their leader, crying Chuck Schumer, have made it very clear where they stand, and that is on the side of criminal illegal aliens and not the American people. Can confirm. They are refusing to fund immigration enforcement unless the Republicans agree to their open border policies, which will never, ever happen again. They almost destroyed our country, allowing 25 million people to enter from prisons, mental institutions, and insane asylums. Those that are drug dealers and thousands of murderers, many of whom killed more than one person, because the Democrats have recklessly created a true national crisis. I am using my authorities under the law to protect our great country, as I always will do. Therefore, I am going to sign an order instructing the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, to immediately pay our TSA agents in order to address this emergency situation and to quickly stop the Democrat chaos at the airports. It is not an easy thing to do, but I am going to do it. I want to thank our hardworking TSA agents and also ICE for the incredible help they have given us at the airports. I will not allow the radical left Democrats to hold our country hostage any longer. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Cool. If he had this power the whole time, it's so interesting. It's just like, oh, so you can just sign an executive order to get people paid. It's interesting how he takes it. It's like he really is still Teflon Don, because it doesn't matter what they throw at him. He'll either take the arrow that they shoot at him, turn around, put it in a bow, and shoot it right back at him and hit him, or he'll use it to his advantage. So, they're not accomplishing anything with this government shutdown this time. He's used the opportunity to send to send ICE into the airports, which I can imagine only gives them another avenue for finding illegal aliens in our country. And now he's signing, the checks, and now he's viewed favorably by TSA. He's a hero coming in to save the day, and they're still sitting on their hands, being stubborn and not actually funding the country. It's good. It feels good. It's so interesting because I don't know if you've noticed this, but there seems to be a shift. And I think this is prophetic. There's a shift towards, and there's a shift against Israel, which we've seen this for a while, especially growing since the death of Charlie Kirk, and the conversion of Tucker Carlson from a fairly good investigator and reporter to a demonic demon as the right hand of the devil himself, to an increase in to an increase in Trump derangement syndrome. And I say this just because people who previously supported Trump are starting to turn against him, which is a prophetic fulfillment, because if he is one of the two witnesses, one of the key elements of one of the key attributes is that they torment the whole world. So it makes it seems like we're on course. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised to see people who I didn't think would turn on him start to turn on him. There are people. Who was it? There was somebody I normally listen to, Canadian Prepper. You guys ever watch him? Oh boy, does he hate Trump now. I don't know if he ever supported Trump. I was under the impression that he did, that he, was for Trump policies and took the typical Canadian stance. But boy, oh boy, his latest video just laid into Donald Trump, very much like Tucker. So it's like there's this shift to where, people are turning against Trump and turning against Israel, which is par for the course for the end time. See, also, an hour ago, congratulations to the International Olympic Committee on their decision to ban men from women's sports. This is only happening because of my powerful executive order standing up for women and girls. President Donald J. Trump. I imagine it's posts like this that irritate people, but you can't argue. This is the truth. This is happening because he's taking a stand. Very much this could be viewed as fire from the mouth to those who would harm him, right? Maybe not him particularly in this particular case, but the fact that he's saying that this would only happen because of his powerful executive order, it's true. It's affecting change. 3 hours ago, as per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others, they are going very well. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. This would be a good time to watch this clip from the cabinet meeting this morning. So this is Donald Trump revealing what the gift is and why, and also kind of give some insight into why there's confusion on whether he's in peace negotiations or not with Iran.
Talks going on with respect to Iran with the right people. I told you about a present, right? Steve, can I reveal the present?
You can do anything you want.
They said to show you the fact that we're real and solid and we're there. We're going to let you have 8 boats of oil, 8 boats, 8 big boats of oil. This was 2 days ago. And they'll sail up tomorrow. That was 3 days ago. And I didn't think much about it. And then I watched the news and they said, a very good anchor actually, happened to be Fox, but I watched it and he said, something's unusual happening. There are 8 boats that are going right up the middle of the Hormuz Strait. 8 big tankers are going loaded up with oil right through. And I said, well, I guess they were right, and they were real. And I think they were Pakistani flagged. Yes. And I said, well, I guess we're dealing with the right people. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're going to send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats. And I hope I haven't screwed up your negotiations, but I thought it was appropriate to say, because I did taunt you the other day by saying they're going to give us a present.
Yeah, so you can imagine that when you're in this situation where you're bombing the country and killing the leaders who are in charge of the country, and new leaders are being replaced consistently. You know, who knows how many, what do they call it? The designated survivors they have planned. And you know, we keep going in and taking them out. Eventually you get to somebody who's willing to negotiate. Well, if you've completely destroyed their leadership structure, it makes sense that there's going to take time. It's going to take time to talk to the right people who are going to take over the regime. This is why I believe we're getting mixed messages. On one hand, there's a group saying, well, we're not negotiating with anybody. And on the other hand, you've got a group saying, yes, we're negotiating, and here's our evidence that we control the assets and resources. And I believe that's what Donald Trump is saying. And by receiving this gift, herein we know that we're talking to the right people, because they have the power to load these ships and offer them as gifts. So these are the ones that we're going to negotiate. Now the question is are they going to be able to subdue the other ones who are claiming that they're not negotiating with us, or is there going to be a continued conflict? So this is part of the unknown issue going on here. And then there's another clip here I wanted to watch, which, you know, I've been seeing a lot of videos, and this is where I think that, like, you know, in Matthew, where it talks about a lot of false prophets rising up and making claims. I see a lot of that with people who are making, and they're not outright claiming to be prophets, but you can tell that they're speaking based off where they believe we are in the timeline and what the expectation is, because you know, there's people who are trying to portray that we're going into a famine, right? And, you know, they're making claims that, oh, you know, the Bible, you know, Revelation told us about this, that you know, a day's wage is it's going to take a day's wage to cover, you know, the meal for the day, Revelation 6:6. And I've seen more than one YouTuber making these claims. Canadian Prepper's one of them. Obviously all the prepper channels, but even people who aren't necessarily preppers, but who are just, you know, watching for end time events, they think that we're at this period of time where there's going to be a famine, which is understandable. We've talked about this on the channel, and that, you know, what constitutes the Great Tribulation? Is it death? Is it, you know, a significant increase in death around the earth? Or by tribulation, is it pressure? Is it, you know, is it a lack of food, a lack of gas? Is it a lack of resources, to where people who are in a modern age don't know how to survive on their own without the system? Is it a collapse of the system that results in them having to learn how to feed themselves? And you see a lot of people who are speculating that we're getting ready to go, and right, they could be right, but it's almost too early to tell at this point if that is the case. And I thought this he made this comment in here because so we're making a lot of decisions based off like Hormuz and this war in Iran, to where people think, oh, we're because the gas is going up, that the trajectory is going to continue in an upward motion. But he makes this comment about our fuel economy that I thought was very interesting. Well, have a listen.
Yeah, please.
Two illegal immigrants who were arrested at San Francisco airport for ignoring deportation orders at the same time as you highlighted.
Oops, this is not
great
the.
reception.
I did not pick the right location. It's right here.
Protect tankers. How close are you to getting that coalition?
Well, we have a coalition for them, but they should have been up here a long time ago. And they're affected. The amazing thing is we don't need the Hormuz Strait. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. We have so much oil. Our country is not affected by this. We have twice the amount of oil as Saudi Arabia or Russia, and soon it'll be 3 times the amount. Chris, do you want to speak to that for a second?
And that's correct. Our total oil production is greater than Saudi Arabia's plus Russia, and more than we consume in the United States. So we're the largest.
Pretty
Yeah,
good.
pretty
You know
nuts.
what they call it? Drill, baby, drill.
Mr. President,
Anything else you want to say?
Well, and same thing for natural gas. We before your first term, we were the largest exporter of natural gas in the world. Today, we're just by far the largest. I mean, we're the largest importer. Now we're by far the largest exporter, and it's growing rapidly this year. New facilities are coming online. New production's ramping up.
We're doing an amazing job. We're getting a lot of help from that man right over there. He's getting approvals done quickly and very environmental. He's an environmentalist, actually. He does a great job, but he gives you a fast approval or rejection.
So this answers a lot of the questions that I've had on the show, like what is our capacity to produce oil? Because my understanding is it took 10 to 12 years in order to bring a facility online in order to process the oil that we have, and that was the reason we had to ship it out to be processed. Well, it seems that may not be the case. That could have been factoring in the fact that it takes so long to get approvals to build these facilities to process the fuel, and maybe that has been taken care of. There's many people who are suggesting that everything Trump said in this cabinet meeting is a lie. I'm sorry, I have a hard time believing that. I'm going to take what is said, and this is from a man who has made outrageous claims that people have said are lies many times in the past, but have always panned out to be true. I definitely see this shift, this spiritual shift where people are turning against him, and yet he still remains the same. So I'm inclined to believe that what he says is true. Which, if that's the case, that's really, really good news. Meaning that even if this war in Iran were to drag on, that simply making some changes to what it is we do with our oil means that we're not going to get to the outrageous fuel prices, that they'll be able to do things maybe even that the Biden administration wasn't able to do. I know because he's opened up so many of the pipelines and processing plants. During the Biden administration, they had the problem because they had shut down the pipelines and the processing plants and were forced to fall back on our emergency reserves. It would seem we're no longer in that situation. The claim is not only do we have more oil than Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Russia combined, we also produce far more than we consume. So if that is indeed the case, that changes the situation that makes me lean less towards supply chain issues and back towards nuclear war, to where the Great Tribulation very likely could be, less on supply chain issues and more on, if we do get to a point in Iran where they say peace and safety, at that point, we may find out that they actually did acquire a nuclear weapon because they may actually try to use it. And then that really, really starts to pinpoint where we are in the timeline. All right, let's get back to Donald Trump's timeline to see what he's got going on here. Let's see. Chuck Schumer, a desperate, crippled politician who has lost control of the radical left Democrats, will make a deal now because he thinks that if he doesn't, Republicans will terminate the filibuster. something which they should do whether he makes a deal or not. Terminate the filibuster. That's funny. Yep. You couldn't ask for more militarily. It will be studied with envy for many years to come. Steve Yates on Fox and Friends First. Okay. When is enough for our Republican senators? There comes a time when you must do what you should have been what should have been done a long time ago, and something which the lunatic Democrats will do on day one, if they ever get the chance. Terminate the filibuster and get our airports and everything else moving again. Also add the complete all 5-item Save America Act items. Go for the gold, President DJT. Yep, same old, same old. 13 hours ago, the Iranian negotiators are very different and strange. They are begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated with zero chance of a comeback, and yet they publicly state that they are only looking at our proposal. Wrong. They better get serious soon before it is too late, because once that happens, there is no turning back. And it won't be pretty. President DJT. NATO nations have done... Man, I hope they haven't booby-trapped those boats they gave us as gifts. Just had a weird thought that's like, I wonder if they have a way of checking what's in the oil in those things. NATO nations have done absolutely nothing to help with the lunatic nation. Now militarily decimated of Iran, the USA needs nothing from NATO, but never forget this very important point in time. Yeah, he sure likes making that point that NATO was completely worthless when we needed them. I imagine that might come up a little bit later on. This one's from yesterday, but we can read it. Blame the Democrats for the airport mess. They want our country to do badly. They want our country to fail. They broke the already signed bill because they want to take care of criminals who enter our country illegally rather than American citizens. Thank you to our great ICE patriots for helping. It makes a big difference. I may call up the National Guard for more help. President DJT. Let's see. The Democrats don't want to make a deal unless amnesty and citizenship is given to millions of criminals who have entered our country illegally, many of whom have been convicted of serious crimes. Protect America. The radical left, country-hating Democrats are trying to create inner chaos to take away from the great military achievements we are having in Iran. They hate seeing us win so completely and decisively, but the American public sees what is going on. America first. Yep. There you go. Okay, so that is the end of his posts. Yeah, let's do Elon next. Man, I'm gonna have to go do one of those. I'm gonna have to take my my Two Witnesses Live, cool beard, black hat, black beanie, and turn him into a Ghibli. J.K. Rowling. So he reposted this. J.K. Rowling. It's going to be incredible. I'm so happy with it. What are you going to be happy with? Hey, J.K. The trailer for the new Harry Potter looks bloody marvelous. I cannot wait. And as it seems to me, neither can the rest of the world. She says it's going to be incredible. I'm so happy with it. So if you haven't heard, they're rebooting Harry Potter as a 8 to 10 series TV show on HBO Max. So if you like Harry Potter, the reason they said that they're doing it is because they were only able to cover about 10% of what was in the books, and they want to be able to cover significantly more content. So they're expanding it out into 8 to 10 hour seasons. In case you're into that kind of thing. All right, from Svetlana Lakova. What's she responding to? So she posted this. The goal of Russiagate was to disenfranchise the American electorate. The global elite said you can vote for whomever you like as long as it's someone we choose. If you don't pick our puppet, we will remove him and punish you. No one has been held to account, so it will happen again. It is not enough to simply beat Trump. So this is from the New York Times. It is not enough to simply beat Trump. He must be destroyed thoroughly. His kind must not rise. President Obama's former campaign manager wrote on Twitter. Yeah, the goal of Russiagate was to disenfranchise the American electorate. Okay, and then so the goal of Russiagate, so the goal of the elite, you can vote for whomever you like as long as it's someone we choose. Yeah, you get the point. Here's Obama spokesperson. Is not enough to simply beat Trump. He must be destroyed thoroughly. His kind must never rise again. What a weird wording. His kind. It's almost like spiritual. His kind. Like, those who follow the Lamb, his kind, the children of God. His kind must never rise again. Yeah, this is how you got Obama's third term, laughingly known as the Biden presidency, with all its lawfare, censorship, attacks on private citizens. And without accountability, it will happen again as nothing has changed. Yeah, not for lack of trying, that's for sure. Terrorists give up after 3 hours in the TSA line. Babylon Bee is hilarious. Oh, funny. Skip the Teslanomic stuff. Let's see. Here's a little song I wrote called Wake the Fuck Up or We're All Gonna Die. Don't worry. Be happy. Elon says banger. Yeah. There you go. Even that little comment right there that this is a banger. Here's a little song I wrote called Wake the Fuck Up or We're All Gonna Die. Even that is an attention getter. Yep. Alrighty, let's see. What is this one? Elon mentioned visiting Saturn. It sounded like from a sci-fi movie, and he is serious. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if you could buy a trip to Saturn, or frankly, if you just have a trip to Saturn? I think things will just be free in the future. It sounds nuts, but if you've got an AI robotics economy that is anywhere close to 1 million times the size of the current Earth economy, literally any need you possibly want can be met. If you think of it, you can have it. So this is a quote from Elon that he's said many times. He's starting to talk about this idea of when your culture, when your society gets to the point to where there's such an abundance of resources that there's no longer a need for fiat economy. A lot of people may not actually understand how this can work, or they may look down at it as though it's some kind of a communist, socialist plan being disguised as something else. I can tell you, so one of the things that was a positive aspect of the cult that I was raised with is they were big enough that when I went and I worked at the headquarters for many years, and one of the things that's interesting about that is they took care entirely of all of our needs, right? So food 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a cafeteria. I've actually experienced this a couple of times, but like all your needs are taken care of. There's nothing you need to worry about as far as your basics, food, shelter, and clothing. And you have an abundance of free time and, resources for your hobbies. So, I feel like I can say that I've experienced what life would be like without having the need for using money. Some people haven't had that experience. So, either they have a negative view of it or they can't comprehend it. And another way that this takes place is in the engineering field. If you're a software engineer, you tend to be so incredibly valuable that the companies tend to try to provide everything you could possibly need. If you haven't heard about this, like life at Google, stuff like that, like they have cafeterias with chefs that cook absolutely gourmet food that's absolutely free. This is becoming relatively common in technology, to where companies have they provide so many resources for their employees. They just don't want them to worry about anything. So it's almost as though it's a cashless society, because all your needs are taken care of. And in technology, there tends to come with a very high salary as well. So I can understand, and this has got to be his experience, because I imagine he's providing the same thing for his employees, to where it's like they just don't worry about anything. All you got to do is go to work and do good, work hard, and you get the benefits of working in that culture. So as he continues to expand and organize and build these things, I can absolutely see why he would make this kind of comment. And you can imagine that that's probably the way God intended us to live in the first place, in the Garden of Evil, Garden of Evil. It did become the Garden of Evil, but originally in the Garden of Eden, when everybody is concerned about their neighbor as themselves, when you love your neighbor as yourself and you have purpose in life, you find that you don't mind, if something needs to be done, just doing it without the idea or need for compensation. So, I mean, I get what he's saying, and I honestly do think that during the 1,000-year reign, there probably will not be money. It will probably be what Elon is saying about in the future, everything will be free. Now, in his mind, he's talking because Optimus, robots, and living on Mars, and, an abundance based on our capability to produce today. But the reality of it is likely that the Messiah is going to come back here and set things in order. And I doubt that if everybody's all on board, it's probably going to be like my experience when I was living on, the grounds at the headquarters for the church that I grew up with, to where, you just go to work and they take care of all your needs. So I imagine that he'll probably organize it in a way. We've read this in the Old Testament, like what to expect during the end times. And, it seems like everybody will have a place to live. Everybody will have land. Everybody will have resources that they need. You'll be responsible for growing, because there's, farming is mentioned, and animals will be a thing. Like there's information there's information about what life is going to be like. And not really any indication of like GDP or economy. You know what I mean? So anyway, moving on. From Tyler Winklevoss, a voting system that doesn't authenticate voters with an ID has no integrity. Yeah. Yeah, if they can't get the voter ID Save America Act to pass, and if our Lord delays for another election, I almost think that if they're going to cheat, we should probably play by their rules. We should mirror what it is that they do, if that's the way they want to play it. I don't know. That's just the way I think. It's just like I'm wondering. It's just like, if they're going to force a system that has no integrity, then why do you have to honor the rules, their rules? Why not play by their rules? I don't know. I'm probably overthinking this. It's not even going to be an issue. All right. What is this? This is new. Elon's attorneys are calling on Clinton-appointed Judge Charles Breyer to investigate the jury in Musk's recent Twitter acquisition case after jurors were mocking Musk in court. Rigged. Yeah, probability of me getting a fair trial, if this is how the judge dresses, is 0.0%. The bow tie. True. All right, what is this?
Hi, I'm David Moss, and my Tesla just...
I hope this is not copyrighted music.
Just recently drove FSD supervised 12,961 miles, and that included a coast-to-coast journey all the way across our great nation. It all started way back when seeing Model S winning Motor Trend Car of the Year, all the awards, 2012. That's when I first heard about it on the scene. Autonomy, robots, the future is always something that has interested me, and just wanting to live in a world where autonomy is a thing. My father's actually blind, and something like a cyber cab here would be a game changer for him. He could get around and do the errands he needs to do, and safety is everything. Going home to see your family at night is the most important thing. It's avoided things falling out of the road. I've had things like paint buckets, multiple road kills that it's avoided. It's driven me in 80-mile-an-hour winds. It's done so many impressive, countless things. Kind of the nature of just what I do, and this was from late November in 2025 all the way until about 2 weeks ago, mid-January. Did all the driving I needed to do. Just took me everywhere I needed to go. Every conference center, client I needed to take out to lunch, every hotel, any sporting event I wanted to go to. I mean, you name it, it's undescribable. You feel like a kid in a candy store. I feel like that for the whole FSD experience, but just for it to navigate at that very first example, the end of the 13 stops on that first day, it actually had to go through a gate. I had to grab a ticket, and it still parked itself. You just can't help but smile. Give it a chance. You can go to your local service center. You need to understand.
Yeah, it is very cool. We love our Teslas. We love full self-driving. So Mindy Kolka, I'm curious if the specific AI tech they're trying to create, perfect, is the same as the replicators in Stargate Atlantis. That would be terrifying when they decide who's the boss. You know, funny that you mentioned that. That is one of the reasons why Elon is speculating that in just like 5 to 10 years, like he's got a very short timeline. They've basically perfected the Optimus robot to where it's capable of doing almost anything that a human can do. And the first, I think 2 million or 200,000, I can't remember, or maybe like for the first 2 years, all the units that they produce are going to be to produce workers to replace like people. And the reason is so that they can have robots making robots. So it kind of in a way, you have a replicator situation to where the robots are making themselves. And at the same time, this is scary just as well. At the same time, we're at this point with artificial intelligence and training that now we're using AI to train AI to where they're spreading out multiple agents, and they're starting to, get into this multifaceted training to where the models are actually going out into the real world and experiencing and learning from real time data rather than being trained on static old data. So yeah, it's definitely from anything that we can tell, this is the first time this has ever happened. I definitely speculate that given how fast we got here, in the amount of time that the Earth has been around, this has probably happened before. It wouldn't surprise me if this isn't the reason why the very first Babylon and Tower of Babel, why God had to confuse the language, is evil was at such a point there that if you build systems that are evil that replicate evil, you can imagine that would be terrible. So you have a replicator situation where they have a hard time deciding who's boss. It may be that we're at that same point in time again, which might be why there needs to be a harvest of the earth, and why there might be a restructuring of the earth to destroy all this crap. I don't know. Too early to tell, but definitely worth keeping an eye on, because we're exactly there. Robots making robots and AI making AI. All right, so let's see. From the rabbit hole, the left's response was also disgusting. When they asked me what radicalized you, I'm showing them this. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Grok Imagine stuff. Top Secret 1984 is super silly and funny. This is a classic action parody film from the trio Zucker, Abraham Zucker, the team behind Airplane. Really? I never saw this. Top Secret. I'm totally watching this tonight. I'm going to bookmark that so that I can watch that. A little bit later. Lots of great gags in this movie. I also just found out that Hugh Laurie and the guy who plays Mr. Bean used to be in a comedy show together in like the 1980s or 90s. Do you know that? Mr. Bean and Dr. House. Can you see those two in a comedy together? Turns out they did a comedy together. All right, what is this?
We're working with Nick Shirley on this. I'm not working with Nick Shirley on this. Nick Shirley, I think, does a great job exposing how so much of that money's wasted. I asked this question of Matt Mahan, who's running for governor. I was like, dude, where'd the $14 billion go that went into that high-speed rail project? There was like it's a high-speed rail, but there's no rail. Yeah. There's nothing. $14 billion. I'm like, whose pocket is that money in? Right. Like, everyone should ask that question of your government, of your elected officials, of your politicians, of your leaders. Where the hell did the money go? And in many cases, you'll find that it just went to create wealth for a few people that are cronies or thieves or that stole it, or it was used to create fake jobs that aren't productive, meaning no one's making anything. They're just taking money and living off of that money from the government. And both of those are not what was promised. When people pay taxes and the government says it's going to do a service, we need to hold the government accountable to do the service. And that just doesn't happen. So I think Nick Shirley holds the government accountable. I think there are dozens of copycats, which I friggin' love. You go out and show the crazy shit that's going on and ask the tough questions, run the audits. Treasury in the federal government should be running the audits and figuring out where'd all the money go. Whose pocket is it in today? You can follow dollars. Where did they go? Yeah. Who has all that money? Who has the nice home? Who has the Bentley? Who has the lakefront home? Like, where did all the money go? Yeah. And I think we're going to be really shocked and surprised if we actually keep going with this narrative. And that's what everyone, this is not political. This is not Dem versus Republican. This is just straight up like how government should be run in a democracy. Hold it accountable, ask the questions, and be comfortable asking those questions. So I think that's something we should all be embracing. And anyone who fights back against it is simply un-American. And I think it's a real question because they're probably the one.
All right, we get the point. Fury made this comment in the chat. A lot of predictive programming in movies. That's a really good point. And you know what's interesting about predictive programming is Tovia Singer is famous for discounting the virgin birth of Jesus, and his claim, his evidence for why it's not valid is he falls back on myth. He often refers to there's many myths and legends where the gods of old are born from virgins, and the story of Jesus is just an evolution of those myths, which I think is a fallacy, because if you understand prophecy, people make movies based on prophecy. Movies are comparable to myths. So it stands to reason that even way back in the day before Jesus was born, that there would be prophecies about a Messiah or a hero figure, and that they would, based on those prophecies, they would have come up with their versions of movies, which is myths and stories that they would tell and that would expand around the world and change based on culture. But when they come back, that's why it feels like this sounds familiar, because once something comes to pass, once a prophecy is fulfilled, those myths suddenly make sense. Like, oh, that's what they were referring to. It's just they're being told from different cultures and different perspectives. So like even today, so many of our movies, almost probably all of our movies, to be honest, are based on the myths and the history and the stories and the just history and the way what's made us who we are today. And a good example of that is this inspired by, thank you. A good example is this movie that I just watched. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's called Jupiter Ascending. Don't read too much into it, but it's almost like a sci-fi version of Soylent Green. If you've seen Soylent Green, you'll know what I mean by that. But it's a sci-fi movie that has elements of the Book of Enoch and the scripture, and and it portrays things in a unique perspective that you don't typically hear, if you're in religious circles, right? Like they explain angels with wings. In the movie, the wings are actually part of a military outfit that basically give you the ability to fly. But, if somebody were to show up with wings, you might think that this is a hybrid of some kind when in the movie they're, well, they are hybrids. They've got implants that have like these mechanical wings on them. But there's a deep exploration of space and ownership and like who has actual rights on a planet and what they can and can't do and stuff like that. Very interesting. I love movies like that. There's another one that's like a retelling of David and Goliath. It's an old TV series called Kings, which is a TV show based on David and Goliath. And boy, does it have! And it's kind of set in a technological future. But very interesting retelling of those records of our history. So I think it's important to be mindful of that and not be overly judgmental like Tovia is. Tovia uses it as an excuse to dismiss, and I think that's premature. I don't think that that's valid, especially when it comes to like prophetic prophecies and prophetic fulfillment. But yeah, that's why it seems like there's a lot of predictive programming. Like, we're living through a time that we've been waiting for millennia. So it stands to reason that there's going to be a lot of stories that seem to parallel what we're experiencing. Elon Musk, we still don't know what kind of ice cream Reid Hoffman told Epstein he was bringing for the girls. I guess some things will always remain a mystery. I do not want to dig into that because I don't care. Really don't care about anything with Epstein. Trying this new accounts you follow and who they follow reply filter on my latest post that Elon reposted. As soon as I turned it on, the number of spam replies collapsed. No idea what it is, but I'll have to check it out. AI content will vastly exceed all human content. True that. We have been surpassed. AI written output exceeded human written output in 2025. Yikes. Maybe it'll just burn itself out, where we'll just get so burned out and tired of AI that it's like doing human what was that phrase? Artisan stories or whatever. Artisan, handcrafted written letters will become a thing again. It'll be like artisan bread. The difference between mass manufactured bread and artisan bread. It was artisan code. It was a joke somebody told to Elon, applying for a job, saying, offering up his artisan handwritten code. From Alexis Ohanian, yes, love my Cybertruck. But business dads need 3 rows for all the fam. Man, I don't know how you would fit 3 rows in there. You'd have to extend it. Yeah. Yeah, because if you're going to have a bed, it's got a 6-foot bed and it's a double cat. It's a 2 cab. So you'd have to make it an extra 4 feet long in order to add a 3rd row. I don't know. I like it just the way it is. You just put the kids in the vault. Lay them down. Just put seatbelts in the vault and you're good. The bed of the truck is called the vault, by the way. All right, breaking. It has been revealed that Thomas Haynes, the man who ran a stop sign killing a 23-year-old woman in Charlotte, North Carolina, has been arrested 25 times with over 100 plus charges. Haynes was let out of prison on bond by a Charlotte, North Carolina judge just weeks before. Man, that is just happening over and over and over again. The accusation of racism paralyzed 300 million people and made them accept the unacceptable. The worst that could happen to them, their own annihilation, their erasure as a civilization. Indeed. From Shen Zuron, understanding and generating videos are mutually beneficial. They are the training materials for physics and embodied AI. Example given, Optimus. How so? What is the goal with image generation beyond creating content for social media? Oh, I get it. Real-time video generation is the most direct and flexible AI native user interface. It's possible that it will subsume all front-end UIs. Yeah, I agree. We're very quickly getting to the point where everything will be AI generated. it's interesting because things are moving so fast right now. It's hard to imagine what things are going to be like. Um, I think that it's very likely going to be that like Netflix and HBO you're going to have movies and TV shows that are generated in real time based on your input. So, for instance, this is my favorite example. The show Firefly is making a big comeback right now because the majority of the team is on board for rebooting the show and doing a cartoon to fill in the gaps because it was canceled so early. But I've always said that like the first thing I would do if I had that ability with AI is generate the next episode in the series because that show was canceled way too early. It was such a good show. It's basically a space cowboy drama to where every episode was a fun adventure. The language was so unique. The characters were so unique. They were, rebels and, facing the Alliance. It was such a good show. But as soon as, AI is capable, I would totally generate the next episode of Firefly. And it's funny, I actually even sent Nathan Fillion, one of the lead actors in the show. He had made the comment that they're pursuing making a cartoon and that we can expect to see it in like 2028. I sent him an email and said, please don't find somebody who does AI and try and be a pioneer to generate these things so that we can see the episodes as soon as possible. Because if you don't, somebody else, some other company is going to make it available for us to just, click the next episode. Like it's going to have a dramatic, like Hollywood is totally cooked. Like, writers and producers in Hollywood, actors even. Now, if money is still a thing in the future, you're going to get paid just for scanning in your likeness so that it can be used in AI-generated content, your likeness and your voice, so that it can be used in content. And that's probably what's going to happen is you're going to turn on Netflix and you're going to be able to watch you're just going to be able to continue down the storyline until it hits an end. Like maybe they'll program in an end that you will eventually get to if you watch, 20 episodes, and then they'll shift to some other show. And this could be ultimately what leads to, if you guys haven't seen it, this is a good movie. Idiocracy, such a good movie. The basis of Idiocracy is stupid people outbreed smart people. So the future is run by stupid people. And the predominant television show is called Ow My Balls, and which is just about the guy in different situations getting kicked in the nuts. That's the primary focus of entertainment, and all the entertainment in the future is about people hurting themselves, kind of like Fail Army. But yeah, so the end of the future is definitely going to be interesting with where we're going. Boy, I tell you what. Let's see. What are you guys saying? It needs to be, let's see. Is this a price point on buying one Elon Musk robots? The image of the beasts. Yeah, the AI, very likely the image of the beasts. Yeah. Which I imagine it's probably going to be the AI that the government's working on, because they are dumping boatloads of money and hiring all the wrong people to build Project Stargate. Yeah, that is very likely the image of the beasts. All right, from Kevin Sorbo. Oh, is that all? Yeah, looks like we are in. Well, I mean, this was posted yesterday. Let's keep going. I don't know. I don't remember this one. 4 white British girls were sexually assaulted by 18 migrants over the course of 24 hours, and the media says nothing. Yikes. Starbase is overworldly. Yeah, that is cool. Grok Imagine. Nick Shirley. What's he got going on?
Would you like to give any last statement about what's going on here? Nothing?
No.
Because it seems like it was pretty good family business. Another guy just pulled out in the M8 competition.
Good for them, bro. Why are you guys pocket watching, bro? Leave the fucking people alone.
Because this is taxpayers' dollars that are paying for all this stuff.
Okay. What the fuck is he? That ass just working, bro.
With taxpayers' dollars receiving money from Medicare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal, you name it. And it just seems like a lot of people are getting rich off of
Bro, I have work.
The death of old people. What do you do for work here?
Bro.
It's sad to think about it. Here in the United States, we're literally being defrauded by people who are taking advantage of old people, young people in daycares, disabled people with autism clinics, and no one's doing anything to stop it. So I think it's time we stand up to these fraudsters and tell them, let them know, you are stealing from everyday American citizens. People can't afford homes, rents are expensive, their insurance is expensive, everything's getting more and more expensive, and if we don't crack down on this fraud, national debt's going to continue going up. This is just one of the factors that affects the national debt, and we're going to lose the value of our own dollar. So people, if they want to really fight to keep America great, a great way to do it is by fighting fraud, because this is just unbelievable. You have people who drive around in BMWs, M8 competitions, Mercedes. Meanwhile, everyday American citizens are struggling to be able to afford their own bills.
You know, what's interesting about this is as he exposes this fraud, and as we learn more and more about the atrocities that go unpunished, you know, the judges who are just outright freeing murderers and people who they know are going to go on to continue to commit crime. It almost wonders, like, so what actually qualifies, and is it even possible to quantify whether we are living in the worst time in history? So while, you know, if you're not experiencing tribulation yourself, it might feel like relatively okay, maybe even the best time in history. Like maybe, you know, maybe you're living your best life right now. But like, as we see these things that are going on around the world, you know, with the conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, the anti-Semitism, Iran sponsoring terrorism, you know, the sex trade, the pornography trade, the sex trafficking, the fraud, the homelessness. Like, we could be living, it's so hard to quantify whether this is the Great Tribulation or not, just because if you're not experiencing it, it's hard to say whether we are or not. You know, somebody who's experiencing excruciating pressure might be more likely to say, yeah, we're living in the Great Tribulation, than somebody who has food, shelter, and clothing, you know, and internet. Even people who are homeless on the street who are under crushing pressure have internet. Many of them have phones with free internet. But it's interesting because I'm just like, I wonder what, because you have to correlate, you know, when the Bible says it'll be like the days of Noah, where they'll be eating, drinking, and given in marriage, and what it means to be the worst time ever on earth, so much so that had it not been shortened, no flesh would survive. You know, does that mean that given the trajectory that we're going, no flesh would survive? Or does it mean that current events are so bad that if they weren't cut short, no flesh would survive? That remains to be answered. I still lean towards current events are become so bad that had they not been cut short, no flesh would survive, which has me leaning towards Great Tribulation might involve global war, nuclear war, where you know, maybe the end of the Iran comes to an end, and then that's when things really just take off. If you are a Tesla shareholder, please read the following step-by-step instructions for filing a complaint and judicial misconduct against Chancellor Kathleen McCormick. Given the clear evidence of bias in her ruling, it's more than justified. DE Chancery Court complaint. No need to wait. No need to wait given the overwhelming results. I don't click links that I don't know what they go to. I'll check this in a secure environment and see if it's something worth reporting on. Let's see. Picked up my new Tesla Model Y today, and full self-driving ride home was the most surreal experience of my life. Went from delivery to parking lot from parking spot without touching the wheel or pedal once. Yes, it is very cool. Okay, well, this is enough about Tesla. What else? Kevin Sorbo. Oh, this is from yesterday, so I think we're done. This is all yesterday's posts. Do we see this? Yes. This is one we can't show. Yep. All right. So we are done with Elon Musk. Let's do a quick look at, let's do a quick look at Bibi, and then we got a video to watch today for addressing the House of Israel. It's a real tearjerker. Let me warn you ahead of time. The video today is a real tearjerker because it hits home for all of us in a good way. All right, let's see. Heartbreaking. Yehuda Sherman, just 18 years old, was murdered last Saturday in a car ramming attack in Judea and Samaria. After investigating, the terrorist confessed to the offenses attributed to him, that it wasn't a car accident and rather intentional terror attack. We will never forget. That's heartbreaking. Hang on a minute. My kid does not know how to read time. We're supposed to be somewhere in an hour. She thought it was now. All right. Who is this? Did I miss this one? So let's see. Statement of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Prime Minister Netanyahu, my wife and I send our heartfelt condolences to the family of the Armored Corps fighter, Sergeant Aviad Volonsky, of blessed memory, who fell in battle in Lebanon. Together with all the citizens of Israel, we embrace the family, blessed memory, who fought with courage and heroism against those who seek our lives. Wow. Heartbreaking. A man was murdered and another man is in serious condition following the rocket fire from Hezbollah on northern Israel. This is the reality of Israelis today being targeted in their homes. The Iranian terror regime and its proxies are targeting innocent civilians in their homes. May his memory be a blessing. A statement by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And it is not in English. Today. So we continue to forcefully strike the targets of the Iranian terrorist regime. Last night, we eliminated the commander of the Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. This man had a great deal of blood on his hand. He was also the one who led the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. This is yet another example of the cooperation between us and our friend, the United States, toward the common goal of achieving the objectives of the war. You know, something to consider. Maybe I'll add this to our timeline, is the two witnesses. Could it possibly be the United States and Israel working together now going forward? That's something worth considering because, when you think they have the power to stop the rain and turn the waters to blood, it makes sense with President Trump as the president and the commander-in-chief that he's able to command the military of the United States. Something that's not true about Elon. Elon doesn't seem to have the power to turn the waters to blood. So that could be something, and it could just be a timing thing to where maybe, we start the count for the 1,260 days from the time the United States and Israel start working together on Iran, and see where that gets us. So I'll work on that in the timeline to see if any of that pans out. Could be the two countries, yeah. Because like I said, my pick from the very beginning, like if I were to choose two world leaders, it would be Israel and the United States. It would be Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. It's just at that point in time when making decisions to just, start with somebody, Benjamin didn't fit the profile, but maybe he does now. I haven't actually checked. I mean, he is posting every day. Has he missed a day since we started checking? Let's see what he did today. I mean, like he's posting an update every day now, so this is a change. Is this one in English? No. All right, what has he said? Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, my wife, okay, we already read that one. Together with all citizens of Israel, we embrace the family of Avid, of blessed memory. Technically read that one. Prime Minister Netanyahu, read that one. This is yet another example of the cooperation between us and our friend. Read that one. Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. All right, let's move on to our video. I guess this is technically this.
Awake, awake, O Zion, arise, shake off the dust, lift your eyes. The chains that bound you are broken at last. Your time of sorrow is now in the past. From darkness to light, you call me to shine. Your glory surrounds, your love is divine. No longer a captive, my soul takes its flight. O Lord, you lead me from darkness to light.
All right, let's. So he's becoming one of my favorite channels, Parshna Inspired, and this is no exception. So the title of the video is "Did the Book of Daniel Reveal the Time of Moshiach?" Now this gets into some interesting things that come up in our lives on a regular basis, which I am dying to address from Scripture. So, well, let's get started.
Can we predict when Messiah will come from the book of Daniel? Check out this clip over here of Rabbi Breitowitz. We'll watch it together, then talk about it. But first, hit subscribe in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch.
In Perek Zion, we have the vision of the four animals. And
Can I say, I love listening to this guy talk. His voice is awesome, and his look is so totally awesome.
The fourth animal is described as a monster that crushes.
So he's talking about the book of Daniel and the four living creatures, or the four beasts that are described.
And destroys everything that's before it. It moves forward. And that is the Malchus of Rome. And in the Malchus of Rome, Daniel is privy to a conversation with, how long shall this monster be in the world? How long shall this monster trample and destroy holiness and the holy nation and the holy land? And the answer was given, a time, times, and half a time. Okay, so that's enigmatic. The second mention of a geula comes in Perek Ches. Okay, Perek Zion was the vision of four fierce animals coming out of the ocean, a storm-tossed ocean. Perek Ches is another vision about a very powerful ram with two big horns that starts goring all the animals and people around it. But then comes a goat that is stronger than the ram. And the goat comes from the west. And here it's very, very clear that this is describing Persia. And the two horns of Persia, you might remember, is because the Persian society was comprised of two ethnic groups, Paras, Umadai. Right, Achashverosh is called the king of Paras Umadai, and those are the two horns. Mm-hmm. And initially, this ram that's goring everybody represents the Persian conquest of the world. But then the goat that comes from the west is the Greek Empire, Alexander the Great, that eventually overpowers the Persian Empire. Now, in describing that goat, it says the goat, instead of having two horns, had one big, big, thick, powerful horn. And that represented Alexander of Macedonia, who is the great world conqueror. But then what happens is the horn breaks and becomes four smaller horns. What do those four smaller horns represent? After Alexander died, at the age of 31, his empire was divided among four generals.
Yep.
So the big horn becomes four horns. Although for purposes of Jewish history, it's only two of them that are important, Seleucus and Ptolemy. But in fact, there were four generals. And then it says, just reminding you of the picture, out of one of those horns came a smaller horn. a horn coming out of a horn, and that horn had eyes, and that horn was talking, very, very odd vision, saying blasphemous statements against God. And it was up, going up and up and up and up till it reached the heavens. This is the horn coming out of the horn. So the simple explanation of that is, this is a reference to Antiochus, who was a descendant of one of those four horns, Seleucus, and he blasphemed against God. He desecrated the Beis Hamikdash. He didn't destroy it. So here's the thing. All of that thing about the one horn becoming four horns and another horn growing out of one of those horns and the blasphemy, that's talking about Antiochus. We're not talking about Titus. We're not talking about Rome at all. Okay, the Perek Ches is talking about the Persian Empire being eventually conquered by Greece, Alexander, and then it's eventually culminating in Antiochus' blasphemy. And yet, it then says that the Geula will come, Erev Boker, evening, morning, 2,300 days.
So the first question we have is, are these end time prophecies? So let's take a look at this clip over here.
The Ibn Ezra has a very pashut pshat. It's a very straightforward pshat. That the 2,300 days means 2,300 days, not years. And it simply expresses the...
That is my opinion also, that when days are mentioned, that it means days. And I think that we have to be very careful that just because a time frame is given in a different format, that we don't assume that it's the same or identical as another period of time. This is something that I've been working through with doing the timeline work in the calendar is, for instance, if it says time times and a half a times, the assumption is that's 3.5 years, and the assumption is that it's equal to 1,260 days. The problem with that is the reality is that time times and a half of times is a division of 7. So 7 doesn't have to represent years, and in fact, it might be given that way because it doesn't represent years. So you have to be careful that when you're looking for something that fits a time and a half of times, that you're not saying that that is 3.5 years. And this is true of like in many cases. So, for instance, it could be that the opening of the 7 seals spans longer than 7 years, but when it refers to time and a half of times, it could be referring to 3.5 seals, the period of time that takes place over the opening of those, the events of those seals. Likewise, when 42 months is given, it's emphasizing, one thing, and days are emphasizing another. I believe that there's hidden meaning in the words that are used. Guess what I'm saying.
The duration of Antiochus' rule over Eretz Yisrael. So according to the Ibn Ezra, the calculation in Perek Ches is totally unrelated to any other calculation, because it's not talking about Rome, it's not talking about the Beis Hamikdash being destroyed, it's not talking about the Gullus, it is simply talking about the persecutions of Antiochus. He is that horn that grows out of the horn that is blaspheming God by desecrating his temple.
But it's impossible to ignore that many great sages, including Rashi and Rav Sadia Gaon and the Malbim and the Ramban, all made predictions about dates, despite our sages telling us that making such predictions is not a very good thing to do. So what's the purpose in writing down predictions that are not clear, and why write it in such an ambiguous way? What is that all about?
As I indicated, the Malbim was the last of the Jewish Meforshim who tries to use these nevuos to portray a particular messianic date. After him, they stopped doing it. Christians still like to do it, and if you, not that you should, But if you look at Christian eschatological websites, which talk about the end of days, so they use, of course, the book of Revelations, which is a book in the Christian Bible, but they also use the book of Daniel. They actually use the book of Daniel to try to figure
Zechariah,
out all
Ezekiel.
sorts of calculations. So they're still into it. We are generally not so into it because we understand, as the Rambam wrote, that these are very, very mysterious ideas, and we really cannot pinpoint it, meaning we have to believe in Mashiach, we have to believe in Geula, but we're not in a position to take any of the biblical prophecies and try to tie them down. And indeed, in Daniel Perek Yud Beis itself, after Hashem gave Daniel these enigmatic formulas, Hashem said, these are matters that are concealed, and generations shall ponder them, and many shall be misinformed and led astray. The Rishonim tried to calculate dates in spite of the Gemara's warning.
All right, let me pause it right there, because this is what I really wanted to address. We haven't actually addressed this in a long time on the channel, and I think that it's worth noting. So this comes up anytime you're talking about end time events, which surprisingly I don't experience this much anymore. It used to be in like 2021, 2022. Anytime I'd start talking about the end time events, people would, no man knows the day or hour. It's not, you can't calculate. If you're a date setter, you're going against God. You're sinning. That was the common responses that I would hear. Oddly enough, I don't hear those anymore, because I think people realize, oh yeah, we're definitely in the end times. I recognize some of these things that are happening. I just don't know the full details. But what I want to handle is that this is covered in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, that you should be watching, and you don't need to be ashamed. So let's just quickly go through. So I asked Grok, I said, give me all the scriptures in the Old Testament and the New where we are told to watch for end time events. So let's start with the New Testament. Matthew 24:42. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. This is the fundamental misunderstanding. People feel that you don't watch because it's impossible to know. You've got the understanding backwards. The reason you watch is because you don't know. It's waiting in anticipation. And that this is fundamental to John 14:29, where Jesus says, I tell you these things beforehand, so that when they come to pass, you will believe. We watch so that when these things begin to come to pass, we will believe. That's the entire point of watching, because we don't know. But when they start to come to pass, that's when you get excited. And this video, he gets very excited in this video, and I just love it. Let's read the next one, Matthew 24:43 and 44. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. This is a good point. This is one of the reasons for why we prepare, why we prepare food for hard times. This is why we pay attention to what's going on around the world and the prophecies that are being fulfilled, because there's the potential for tribulation. There's the potential for supply chains being disrupted. We're in a transition. The kingdoms of this world are becoming the kingdoms of our Lord's and his God. So it's a transition period, and the God of this world does not want to let go. So it stands to reason it's going to be a rough time. But when he comes and when he finally takes charge, that's when things will start to be better, when things get put back in order and it becomes the world that God originally intended it to be. All right, Matthew 25:13, watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. Right? Again, watch therefore. People often quote, no man knows the day or hour, but do you realize it says watch because you don't know the day or hour? Mark 13, 33 through 37. Be on guard, be alert. You do not know when the time will come. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know when the owner of the house will come back. What I say to you, I say to everyone, watch. Parallel to Matthew 24. Luke 21, be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and anxieties of life, and that day will close on you suddenly like a trap. For it will come on all those who live on the face of the whole earth. Be always on the watch, and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen, and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. Yeah, you should be working on yourself so that when he comes, you're not one of the ones that many will say to him, Lord, Lord, did we not do this litany of things? And he will declare to them, I never knew you. Good time to work on yourself. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's pretty easy. Don't overcomplicate it. Luke 12, 35 through 40. Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning. That's a theme. Like servants awaiting for their master to return, you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. Yeah. So, but the point is that if you're watching, you will see him coming, and you can prepare. 1 Thessalonians 5, 1 through 6. Now, brethren and sisters, about the times and dates, we do not need to write to you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. But you, brothers and sisters, are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You are all children of the light. So then let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be awake and sober. Revelation 3, 2 and 3. Be watchful. Ha! I am. And hopefully you are too. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain. Remember, therefore, how you have received and heard. Hold fast and repent. Therefore, if you will not watch, there's a conditional here. If you will not watch, I will come upon you as a thief, and you will not know what hour I will come upon you. Revelation 16:15. Behold, this is what makes me think. So right here, Revelation 3 and Revelation 16, these seem to be mirror images, that chiastic structure. Behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake. This is what causes me to think that the bowls and the trumpets might not be in chronological order. More on that later. Behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake, keeping his garments on, that he may not go out about naked and be seen exposed. Let's see, Olivet Discourse. Yep, so Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, all talk about the end times and watching for events. 2 Timothy, but understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, you can say that again, for people will be lovers of self. Yeah. Ain't that the truth? 1 Timothy 4, now the Spirit expressly says in the latter times, some will depart from the faith, unfortunately. And we're seeing that. We're definitely seeing that. All right. Now, Old Testament stuff. So, and I have to say that like the day counts that are given, they have to be given for a reason. If they're not given, if they're not meant for us to identify things, what's the point? And often these things are identified in hindsight. Very rarely do we get lucky enough to get things right in such a way that you can go, okay, the next thing that's going to happen is, this thing. It looks like we're in seal number 5, but I don't know for sure because nothing happened on the day that I expected it. The next period to watch is August 12th. As these potential times come and pass, we know more and more. But one thing is for sure, things are happening. And so often a lot of that stuff is given in the Old Testament so that we can recognize the pattern in our day and time, because things tend to happen in cycles and they tend to be shapes and shadows of things of old. All right, moving on. Daniel 12:4. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Yeah, that implies that we're going to know more and more. Like Daniel was given certain information, but told to seal it up. Probably because a lot of the things would be so foreign to people that it would be confusing had he written them down. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell's a president? If he had written, instead of 2 witnesses, wrote, 2 presidents. Let's see. Many shall run to and fro. Joel 2:1. Blow a trumpet in Zion, sound an alarm on my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming, it is near. Habakkuk 2:1-3. I will take my stand at my watchpost and station myself on the tower, and look out to see what he will say to me. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. It is said that the saints, that this is a time of patience, that this period of time is going to try our patience. And it's no wonder so many false prophets rise up, because they speak prematurely. That's really what's happening in my mind. I don't think that there's evil intent. It's just we see the end times, and they're filtering the events through what they believe they know, rather than, in a lot of cases, very few are actually watching things happen and then reevaluating what it is that we know. Which is one of the reasons why I think that he's also going to come upon people like a thief in the night, because they're not truly watching, they're predicting. And there's a danger in that, because they've determined in their mind and in their speech and their teachings, they've determined what they expect things to mean and what to look for. And, when they're setting dates and times, just how many people are saying the rapture's, going to happen on Nissan 1? How many people are saying the rapture's going to happen, for whatever holiday, whatever reason? Because that's what, they're anticipating, a pre-tribulation rapture, right? Yeah. All right, I got to get going. My daughter is bugging me here. So you get the point. These are the Old Testament. The whole point is we should be watching. So let's get back to our video here.
Rashi, Rav Sajagon, Ramban. The Rishonim tried to calculate dates, and the argument always was to give hope to a despondent nation, that they have something to look forward to. The problem, of course, always is when those dates pass, the hopes get dashed. So, in a way, it's a very
and that's a very real consequence of what we're doing, and why it's so important to be extremely honest. Don't tell somebody that you had a dream. Don't tell if you didn't have a dream. Don't tell somebody that you spoke to Jesus if you didn't speak to Jesus. Don't tell somebody that you received special information if you didn't receive special information. People do this. They lie. They will lie in order to get attention, and that really emphasizes and causes people to be disappointed. You've got to be brutally honest and say, look, based on what I believe, this is what I'm expecting. If you truly are talking to somebody presenting themselves as Jesus, that's another issue you're going to have to deal with. If you are receiving dreams and visions, are you understanding them correctly? Are you sure that it's not just that you had too much sugar before you went to bed? Because one of the hardest things to know and understand is if our Heavenly Father is actually communicating something to you. Hang on a minute. I got to go holler at my kid. All right, we got to keep going.
It's a very strange strategy, meaning I'm going to give you hope by telling you a certain date, but what's going to happen when that date comes? So this is why Chazal did say, Tipach Rucham Shel Mechashvei HaKetz. That means those who try to calculate the end of days, Moshiach, Tipach Rucham, they should explode, meaning they should die, basically. It's not something that's Kedai. And the Rambam talks about
This is why I read all of that scripture, because it is very clear that we're told to watch.
the fact that it does raise false hopes. So if I were to tell you,
it raises false hopes when you're not honest. I believe that you can do this in an honest way, and I hope that I do that. But there's going to be, disappointment, if we get things wrong. That's absolutely, and I endeavor. That's why I say absolutely. I am not a prophet. I have no indication at all whatsoever. Well, that's not entirely true. I do believe that God has communicated and inspired me and led me to where I am in life. But as far as am I a prophet who was ordained to provide this information? I cannot in good conscience tell you that is the case. I do believe that we are in the end times, and I do believe that, I was raised for a time such as this, just like many of you are. I mean, there are so many of us who felt activated when we realized that the prophecies of the end time were happening. So, yes, I do believe that we were raised for this time to recognize the events, get excited, and speak. This is the time to shine as a light in the world and get people excited and get people converted and, get the harvest ready. But, you got to be careful that you're not making false claims and overselling, or, you get the point. Because there's going to be disappointment when you get it wrong.
Mashiach is coming next year. I know that. I have a divine prophecy. So assuming you believed me, for the next year, you would be very, very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does raise your hope for the year. But what happens after the year Mashiach doesn't come?
All right, we got to fast forward
here. The truth is, you might be...
Come. The way Reb Breitowitz explains it is that there are personal realities for every generation. And that reality is that the verses could be understood. If we're saying they are biblical prophecy and they are referring, and there's a question if Daniel was even a prophet.
But the answer is that, remember that Daniel is not a prophet. Hashem didn't tell Daniel, go tell the Jewish people about these obscure dates. This is a private revelation to Daniel as an individual. So as an individual, he merited certain visions, which were not complete. But that doesn't mean, in other words, in a way, it wasn't meant for us. Now, again, that sounds very strange, because Lamaisa, it is part of Nach, it is part of Kesuvim. But given the fact that Daniel is not a Navi, Hashem didn't tell Daniel to communicate these things. This could have remained a private diary. The only reason why it got included in the Bible, in the Tanakh, is since it was written under divine inspiration, so it's considered to be a sacred document. But it's not necessarily a nevuah.
Interesting.
That was meant to be communicated.
Never thought of it like that.
But he definitely was spoken to by the angel. So we really have to understand if this was a message. But if it is, and I'm not going to get into the calculation. There's a separate video we can do on that. It's math, but the question is, nobody likes doing math. So the answer, my friends, that Reb Breitowitz gives, and we'll watch the clip, but before we watch this next clip, I want to just explain why having possibilities is important. And we touched on two topics over here, and they're both equally important. The first one is free will. That means that in any situation, God needs to manipulate the world. There's two types of God's intervention in the world. There's something called hashgacha klalit, which is the general operation of the world. And there's something called hashgacha prati. That means God's personal, how he deals with you. So when we're discussing the Messianic times, we're discussing both the entire world, the Jewish people, and the individuals within the world. Their redemption needs to come about through a process, and that process is dependent on many, many factors. At a certain point, it will become more obvious that Hashem runs the world. And as that process becomes more obvious, the amount of evil will rise with that as well. And then they both go to war. So when Mashiach comes, even though the prophets predicted dates, what it seems like, days, years, a half measure, a full measure, these all indicate
You know, the fact that they don't acknowledge the book of Revelation is probably one of the reasons why they feel the way they feel about setting dates, because without really the book of Revelation is the key to understanding the time that we're in, because that's what Jesus told us before it happens, so that when it begins to happen, you will believe. Like there's literally signs in the stars. Like this is the anchor point. Once the anchor point happens, this is what happens next. This is what happens next. It's encoded. So honestly, we don't understand it until it happens. It's like, but when it happens, you're like, okay, this point, this point, this point, this point lines up. It must be that. And then this point, and this point. It's like pieces of the puzzle being put. But that's what, tells us and informs us that we're here. Get busy.
A cryptic message which will become clear when Mashiach comes. And since the Malbim passed, there hasn't been any other predictions. There are more modern people making predictions, and at best, what we can say is it's a possibility. For certain, right now, the situation in the world all looks like it's a very good possibility because so many of the prophecies have been fulfilled.
Yeah.
Because the Jewish people have returned to the land, because the land has been giving forth its fruit, because the land sat desolate for so many years. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
I want to make sure that I cover this before I go for the evening. Something that we've talked about many times on here is how it says, so let's see, what is it? It's John 5:43. 5:43. Jesus says, I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you will receive. Then there's a parallel to this that, where is it? I always forget this one. Let me go look it up. I just thought of this. Where does it say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord? Matthew 20. Oh, you know why? I remember where this is. It's Matthew 23:39. It's so close to here. 23:39, right there. O Jerusalem, O Jerusalem, or O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. But you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I say to you, you shall see me no more till you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. That's why it's so important to recognize, I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. Once they realize that will be a key indicator for him to return. So it's like we're so close to, the Christians have this. They realize that Jesus came in the name of the Lord, and they're so close to recognizing that Jesus came in the name of the Lord. And, we're getting closer and closer to that point to where we're getting to this convergence. All right, let's listen.
Let's go back to Rabbi Breitowitz and let's see how he explains this.
Rashi himself comments on another calculation of Rav Saadia Gaon that had an earlier date. And Rashi says it already passed, and we just have to have hope that there's another interpretation. Rashi's language implies that Rav Saadia Gaon got it wrong.
What's unbelievably important about what Rav Breitowitz just said is that Rav Saadia Gaon, whose Arabic name was Sa'id bin Yusuf al-Fayyumi, who lived in the 850s, he had something that he wrote based on Daniel and predicted a date. Now, it's quite possible that that could have been one of the interpretations, but it didn't work out that way. But I wanted to take you to a different part of this puzzle, which teaches us something very, very important, which I think people should pay attention to what this message is. That a lot of people are asking, great rabbis, can they make mistakes? Not mistakes, could they make predictions that don't come up? And the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. When the state of Israel was established by the secular Zionists, a lot of great rabbis were in question, is this the Messianic times unfolding? Some said yes, some said no. And because of that decision that they made then, many people today are still refraining from coming to Eretz Yisrael, saying that our rabbi who has passed and is no longer with us or had a prediction about today. So it's quite clear that predictions about these things are just what they are, and they don't have to come true, because it's not an absolute prophecy that could be understood. Like it says in Daniel 12, 8 and 9, we'll get to that soon. Let's go back to the video.
But I was trying to say that's not necessarily the case, and that is, if these nevuos are susceptible to multiple interpretations, so it's not that one is right and one is wrong, and if you don't get the right interpretation, you have it wrong. Rather, Hashem is saying any one of the possible interpretations could have been a messianic event had the generation been worthy. And if it's not worthy, it then gets recalibrated to a different date.
I don't know. I disagree with that one. Maybe after Jesus was crucified, that might have been true before Jesus was crucified. But the fact that we have star alignments written down that only happened one time, I'm pretty sure he knew it was going to happen this time.
Is not a question of a right interpretation versus wrong interpretation, but rather these are potential messianic dates. And I think that's a useful point. Maybe it would have been more useful for the people who lived before that date, that through tshuva and repentance, they would be capable of bringing the geula. But it also gives a person hope, meaning to say by trying to see how these things can be translated into actual dates, so a person has a sense of reality in the coming of Mashiach. So instead of saying Rashi is wrong, we would just say that Rashi pointed out what could have been a messianic date. If it passes, that's not a proof that Rashi is incorrect. Of course, it's not a proof that he's correct either, but it's not a proof that he's incorrect. It just means that we were not zocheh to that iteration of the nevuah, and we have to have another interpretation which may elude us.
There you have it, my friends. Daniel may end up being messianic prophecy of when Mashiach will come. But if we look at Daniel 12:8, it says, "And I heard, but I did not understand. And I said, my Lord, what is the end of these?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "Go, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed until the end of times."
Yeah.
In Hebrew, kistumim v'chatumim hadvarim ad eis kates. These things are completely incomprehensible and unknown until the time comes. Perhaps the reason why the Rishonim, the great sages, the Achronim, and even the Malbim tried predicting it or extrapolating it was because they felt that they were in the time of Mashiach. And I want to tell you a secret. Every generation, since we were exiled, has been convinced that they are in the time of Mashiach. But they didn't have Eretz Yisrael. All the prophecies that we're living in right now, they didn't have those prophecies. The prophecy that the land will sit desolate, and the prophecy that we will be scattered among all the nations around the world, and the prophecy that the land will not be rebuilt, and the prophecy that the Jews will return, and the prophecy that the land will start giving its fruit, and the prophecy that we will build up the land. And when we build up the land, God will say, "Baniti hanerosos," I built up the ruins of Jerusalem. But we did it. Hashem says, when you do it, and it's possible to be done, then it's Hashem's doing. So when we talk about Mashiach, we're talking about a process. We're talking about getting there. And that's really the heart of this conversation. Yes, there is a date, and it's encrypted. But preparing for the is more important. In a week's time, we're going to be sitting by the Seder, Pesach night. And at that time, all the work has been done. We've cleaned the house. We've gotten rid of all the chametz, all the leavened bread. And we're going to eat matzah. But the Sfas Emes says, a holy rabbi of Gore, that the preparation is more important than the actual mitzvah. You'll say, what? Preparing for a mitzvah is more important? Yes. You see, the way you prepare for the way you do a mitzvah is by preparing for it. And the way we clean our house for Pesach.
All right, I'm gonna end it there. We've got the majority. You can tell that he is visibly excited, and I think we can all relate to him, because there's the realization that there's so few prophecies left to be fulfilled. This has to be the time. Like, we are so close. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but we know it is really close, and it's an emotional time. It's an exciting time. And I think we can all feel that way. And if it doesn't, you know, they're expecting it on a particular day at this point, but if it comes and goes and it doesn't happen, it's not a time to give up hope, because we're still very close. It's just, there's so many things we didn't understand that had to come to pass for this time to be upon us, and it's upon us and we can see it. All we have to do is endure at this point and continue to watch and look and not allow the thief to come upon us in the nights. And with that, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you like this content. Visit us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, or Pacific Time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless you guys. Shalom, shalom.